Now, would you be happy to pay more tax? The boss of a major think tank has said that all political parties are not being transparent about their financial plans and believes that households could face 5 more years of tax rises. Paul Johnson, the director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies, accused Labour and the Conservatives of engaging in a conspiracy of silence over the economy and said that Reform and the Greens have made unrealistic tax claims which make their opponents look feeble. Well, both Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer have said that they won't raise income tax or national insurance, but is it enough? Are you concerned about more tax rises? Dawn, taxes are already very high.
Of course.
Do you think tax rises are on their way regardless of who wins?
Well, I mean, the thing is, shocker, none of the parties are being honest about what we face tax rise-wise. I mean, the bottom line is none of the policies that none of the parties have outlined actually work. We know that at some point they're going to have to start getting some more money from somewhere. So Keir Starmer saying, oh, these 3 taxes I'm not going to touch. There are 12 other taxes that he hasn't mentioned. And he keeps going on about working people. I've still got no idea what a working person is. He's talking about the working class. I mean, Rishi Sunak is a working person. I mean, he might be a millionaire, but he's still a working person. So it's all a load of fudge. At one point, we are going to have to pay more tax. I think we all accept that. What you do about it, I don't know. What I do know, the very rich people who are the ones that should be targeted doing is leaving the country.
Well, that's what the IFS have said, is that, Labour have said that they won't be taxing working people, but there isn't really a tax available to them that isn't on working people.
Well, it does depend how you define working people.
Well, exactly. No one does.
That's exactly right, because what I think we should do is increase taxes on the well-to-do, the top 5%.
Which is what the Greens are considering.
Absolutely, and that's by both income tax, but actually principally a wealth tax. And actually, back in 2020, there was something called the Wealth Tax Commission, which was set up by accountants, including those who help rich people avoid taxes, to be brutally honest, economists, a whole range of experts, about how you raise actually very large sums of money. The reason, what I find disturbing, and I have to say, it raises massive questions about our democracy. We've gone through this slightly absurd general election campaign where we failed to talk about the big issues facing the country. According to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who you just quoted, there is at the moment an annual £20 billion worth black hole. A black hole in our finances worth £20 billion a year. If you don't fill that £20 billion a year, that means you have to cut public services by £20 billion a year. That's on top of all the cuts that we've already had for the last 14 years. So if you wanted to just stand still and look at the state of our services now, just look at them. If you want to stand still, you've got to find £20 billion a year extra to fill that hole. How have we got through? And this isn't just about our politicians. I'm sorry, and I've been working in the British media now for 13 years. How the hell have we got through weeks of a general election campaign without the main focus on domestic policy about a £20 billion a year black hole and how we fill it? Where has the questions been? Instead, we had for a while Rishi Sunak, I'm afraid, making up nonsense about increasing that Labour was going to have this tax bombshell. The question should be, we should raise taxes, not on most people. Most people can't afford extra taxes at the moment, but the well-to-do are doing very well. They can, and unless we do that, this country is going to fall apart.
But the Greens have been criticised with their plans on taxing the wealthy because France has tried a wealth tax before and they found people left. It didn't work. They had to do a U-turn on that policy. There are other countries as well that have tried it. So why do we think it's going to work in Britain?
By the way, the French wealth tax, we could go through the French wealth tax. There's I mean, lots.
I don't think I've got that long to live.
Okay, that's fair enough. The French wealth tax was a very badly designed and actually very small wealth tax. So the net in money it was always going to raise.
So because this is taxing the even wealthy, this is extreme wealth.
So the whole point of the Wealth Tax Commission, which was set up, and people should just Google it because it goes into great depth. What was so ingenious about this plan, and it was a massive project which brought in economists and accountants, and one of the main people behind it, their job is to help wealthy clients get around taxes to reduce the amount they're paying. The reason that's important, the reason I bring that up, is it was designed, this wealth tax, on the basis of stopping people from avoiding paying that tax. But the whole point is, and this is when people talk about the rich people leaving the country and elsewhere, if you want to go to a country with low taxes, go to Russia. The point I'm making there, that might sound flippant, go to there's lots of Eastern European countries with lower tax rates than Britain. Why don't all the rich flee there? They don't go there because people actually like living in well-funded societies where things work. And
you don't think people would move from Britain? That's
lots of very wealthy people are going to places like Dubai.
When we're talking about the vast majority of people, no offence to Dubai, don't want to go to Dubai. People move into this country from countries with lower taxes than here because actually they like living here. And it's just an absurd idea. Okay. And I think actually, whatever I think about inequality, I think it insults a lot of rich people to think that the only thing they care about is if they pay a little bit more tax, but live in a country like Russia. Who wants to do that? Just to sum up,
you do think there should be taxes, but on the very wealthy?
On the well-off and big corporations.
Joe from Sheffield, what's your view when it comes to paying more tax? Would you be happy?
Hello, morning all. As usual, I agree with Owen. Hello, Owen, my pal from originally Sheffield. Yeah.
I know. I sold out my Sheffield Reeds. I left when I was 4, so I'm a plastic Yorkshireman, but technically a Yorkshireman.
Okay, you can have him back if you want. Not fussed.
Oh, I'd love to.
Tell us your view, Joe. What's your thoughts on taxes?
Owen, I don't know if you saw about a fortnight ago, a female caller suggested you should be Prime Minister.
Things are desperate at the moment, but they're definitely not that desperate.
It sounds like you'd get Joe's vote anyway.
Could go into cohorts. Well, I would be happy if it was specifically allocated for the public sector, for the NHS and education, etc. But there is still, I know so many callers are going to disagree with me. I think lots of people would pay more tax, a little bit more tax, which altogether adds up to a lot of money if it could be specifically. I think the NHS needs reconfiguration big time. And also, I think that people are dealing with the cost of living crisis, and there are certain things that could be tackled about that. For example, why are media companies allowed to put up, when you're in a contract, they can break the contract and put your bill up, and it's plus 3% on top of inflation. Why is that allowed? Why are gas companies, etc., allowed to CEOs, shareholders, allowed to get massive profits at the expense of us? So we need to deal with that.
I hear what you're saying. You want to limit these sort of loopholes and ways people can make extra cash. That's slightly different than tax.
And there's a specific media company, Virgin, I'll say, which is common knowledge, have switched all their banking to, I think it's Luxembourg, for tax purposes. That kind of thing shouldn't be allowed.
Okay, but Joe, that's part of the argument of not raising the taxes for big businesses, because they can just shift their business, particularly if they're on online or
But this is the other... So just to show why that doesn't work, take Starbucks. Starbucks is not just going to leave Britain. It's just not going to happen. And if they did, then they would be replaced by other coffee shops.
Also, Joe, we can't verify exactly what you said there, so we'll have to leave that where it stands. Thank you very much for your call. Julie from Northumberland, what's your view when it comes to tax particularly? Would you be happy to pay more? Joe would, as long as it was ring-fenced for certain services.
Exactly, yes, I would be more than happy. I'm a pensioner and I do pay tax, but I would be more than happy to pay more tax. And I suggest, if they should be brave, but they're not, they should be brave enough to put VAT up. I think they should put it up by 2p, because there's no VAT on food, there's no VAT on children's clothes, and that way everybody is paying.
But there is VAT on sun cream, which we'll get to later, and there is VAT on sanitary products.
Julie, lovely. As a pensioner, I mean, the Conservative Party have said they are going to keep the triple lock. Labour haven't been clear on this subject. As a pensioner, would you be willing to lose the triple lock on your pension and end up paying more money that way?
Yes.
Well, I don't think we should get rid of the triple lock. We have more pensioner poverty in Britain than a lot of other countries, about 2 million people already. And if we get rid of the triple lock, it just means younger people today have worse pensions later on. So they get the double whammy of being hit now with all the cuts they've faced.
I think you're optimistic to think that young people are going to get a pension.
Well, that's why we have to fight.
You'll be 99, but I mean, you might get it.
But they'll get it eventually.
We have to fight to defend our pensions. But VAT is a terrible tax. It's regressive. That means it hits poorer people. If you increase VAT on basic items, then you'll end up with poorer people driven further into hardship. We should focus tax rises on people who can afford to pay more taxes, which is why we should focus on the top rate of income tax, and wealth taxes. But we need the NHS is a really good example that was raised before. Labour's plans at the moment is to increase appointments by just 2%. That's not enough. We've got an ageing population. The NHS is falling apart. If we don't have massive increases in investment, the NHS is not going to work. It's really straightforward.
And it sounds like anytime we talk about tax, a lot of people want it ring fence for certain services that they're happy to pay more for, but there's a sort of lack of trust as to where that money's actually going to go.